All right. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Today we're going to be talking about, boom, so exciting, how to write a US Common App style essay. Everyone's favorite topic, I know. Writing essays, always exciting. Actually, I think in the long run, this might actually be something that students really do like, that you really do enjoy. Because a big part of applying to universities and preparing for life after high school is self-reflection and thinking about yourself and learning things about yourself. And that's one of the things that's really exciting about this journey to figuring out what you want to do after high school. And journaling and writing is a really fantastic way to do that. So I hope that even if you're intimidated by this and you're scared, that ultimately you find this to be a really beneficial process. Alrighty, so where'd my Zoom thing go? Oops, just sorry, minimize. There we go. Okay. Um, yeah, the I, I'm sharing how I do this, how I typically run it in an in-person workshop. So if you're watching this, whether you're a student or a parent or whatever, um, yeah, this is meant to be done with a group in a class setting. So I'm going to talk you through things, but it won't feel exactly the same, particularly this particular workshop. So I ask students to go through and share three words they associate with college essays and two questions they have and one metaphor or simile. If you are a student who's watching this, I recommend that you take a few moments and you jot these things down for yourself. And at the end of this, see if anything changes. And in just a moment, I'm gonna switch to the next slide where I'm gonna share some metaphors and similes that previous students have written that I think are kind of fun and interesting. So if you are gonna pause it, do so now. Otherwise, we're moving to the next slide in three, two, one. Here we go. Oops, maybe. There we go. Okay. So these are some metaphors and similes that my previous students have written. So I'm just going to share a few of my favorites. I think this first one, college essays are like peeking through a curtain and trying to catch a glimpse of something. I think that's really interesting. Um, College essays, this third one, college essays are like a book with the best chapters of your life. I like that because it's true. It's about the best parts of yourself. This is an exercise in sharing the best parts of yourself. All of us have flaws, and this is not a chance to like air out your flaws. Sometimes students think I should like overshare about mistakes I've made. Unless you're sharing it because they've really helped you to grow and change and learn something, then yes, share the best parts of yourself. Um, yeah, this one down here, college essays are like a painting, a self, or like painting a self-portrait that speaks to the viewer. That's nice. Something that's visual that helps us envision you as a student. That's really helpful. Um, yeah, and this last one, college essays are like sculpting a masterpiece from a block of marble. The raw material is there, but you need to have patience and creativity to reveal the masterpiece. This one particularly speaks to me at the moment because I was just looking back at an exemplar that I'm going to share, which not in this workshop, but in the future, where a student I think wrote a beautiful essay, and I was asking the student, "Can I share this?" And I didn't notice until a little bit later after I'd asked him. He said, "Yes, you can share, but here's a more updated version." That in the document he'd shared with me, there was six different versions from brainstorming all the way through to the final product. And I found that really helpful to look at because typically this is not something where you write the essay in one night and then you're like, wow, I've got this masterpiece. You get to the masterpiece, you get to this wonderful essay that speaks for you and shares about you by going through iterations, multiple drafts, typically five or more drafts, sometimes 10 drafts. And that's why it's really important to start early so that you have the time to go through different drafts and get feedback from a few different people. Typically, maybe two or at most three. Too many people giving you feedback can be overwhelming, but giving yourself that time to go through and sit with your essay for a couple of weeks and then come back to it. I know that whenever I write something and I come back to it a week or two later, I have things that I want to fix or things I want to update. So that's a really important piece here. Okay, so we're going to be looking at understanding what universities are hoping to learn about you from the college essay. And this is US colleges and universities. This is different than other places. And then be able to identify strengths and weaknesses in a college essay. Okay, that's our goals for today. What are universities looking for? And can you identify strengths and weaknesses in college essays? And again, this is US specific. US universities and colleges have a different frame of reference for what they want out of an essay like this than a European university or a UK university or one in Australia or Singapore or someplace else. Okay, pretty specific to the US or US style universities because there are US style universities in other parts of the world. Okay, here's a question. How do colleges know what makes you unique and special? And the answer to that is your application, right? Because they don't get to sit with you and get to know you and hang out and spend time with you and go on a road trip or something where you'd really get to reveal lots of parts of yourself. They have this application, this paper application, paper, right? It's all digital at this point, where they are reading some different pages and they have the transcript and you control your transcript, right? You've been controlling it. You control your grades. You earn your grades, and that's really the most important thing. That's 75% probably of what a university looks at. So they look at your grades and your classes and they say, okay, this student we think is academically capable at our university or college. They'd be a good academic fit. And once they have that question answered, then they go to the other parts. And the other parts are they're trying to figure out how would you fit into the community? How would you contribute to the overall community at the college or university? And that's when they're looking at your essays, your resume or activities list in the Common App, your recommendation letters, and perhaps an interview, depends on the college or university. Typically, interviews aren't a really big process, a part of the process. Really, it's those other parts where you are writing about yourself in your essays, um, and in your resume, and then you choose which other people write about you for your recommendation letters. So obviously, you control your transcript, but that's a slower process. And you control who you ask to write your recommendation letters. But yeah, the essay is a part where you really get some choice in what you share. This is a big part of you sharing and how you can influence how colleges get to know you. Okay, so we talked a bit about this. Again, this workshop is meant to be done in person. So what I'm going to recommend that you do is you take a moment. This is Daryl Uwe. He is the, last I checked, the director of admissions at Bates College. I'm not sure what his official title is now. I should probably look that up. Daryl's a great guy. And I think this 1 minute video is one of the best videos that I have found summarizing what makes a good college essay. So I'm going to recommend that you pause this video, you click on the link in the slides, and you watch that. And then on the next slide, I'm just going to summarize what I think the most important points that Daryl make are. So again, pause, watch the one. It's 1 minute, 1 minute of your time. I recommend it. It's a great, quick way to hear what the director of an admissions office thinks makes a great college essay. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm changing slides now. All right. So here's what I think is really important about what Daryl says. So he starts with proofread, proofread, proofread. And yes, absolutely. Don't send something that looks like you're lazy, right? And you didn't take the time to make sure that there's no spelling or grammar errors or things like that. Even if you are an English language learner, you should be able to hand in an essay that has no errors, right? You can get people to help you with that. Use spell check. This is actually a really good way to use something like ChatGPT is take your finished essay and say, can you proofread this and make sure there's no spelling or grammar errors for standard American English? And you can make sure that that works well. Okay. Then he says, I think the most important parts, this does not have to be where you share the most unique or most interesting topic. And in fact, from doing this for a long time, it's nearly impossible to write about something that someone else hasn't written about in some way. Sometimes students like, I need to write something that no one else has ever written about. Why? Right? Like it's really hard when there's millions of students literally writing these essays every year. It's going to be really hard to be completely unique. So what really matters is being authentic, sharing your voice and part of your story. Everyone is unique in our own particular ways, and we have parts of us that the colleges wouldn't get to know about otherwise. And it can be really anything, but you're trying to share some positive qualities of yourself that will help the university say, okay, I can see how you would fit into our community and positively contribute to that community. So it doesn't have to be anything magical. It's just, as he says, a moment in someone's ordinary life, right? And that can be, yeah, in the classroom, outside the classroom, at home, traveling. Um, but it doesn't have to be this like magical thing where you ran into a building and saved babies because there was a fire or something, right? Like no one expects you to be this superhero. Just be you. That's what really matters is be you and let the college or university get to know you. Okay. So next, again, I I use this in an in-person workshop. So there's two essays here. You'll see linked essay one and essay two. This is from Khan Academy. Khan, Khan. Khan Academy has great free resources for all kinds of things from applying to college to studying for the SATs to how to do linear algebra, whatever it is, they've got great free resources. But this is great because these two sample essays, they have the sample essays, you read through them, and then they have like 2 to 3 minute videos where you get to hear admissions representatives who read applications as part of their job, including this woman who's on the screen here who works at Stanford. You get to hear them talk about what they thought about the essay and what the strengths and what the weaknesses are. Okay, so uh, the my following slides, in case you want to do the work, and I recommend if you're a student watching this that you actually do the work because that's how you'll actually learn, is you click on essay one, you read through essay one, it's 650 words or less because that's the limit. And then you watch the 2 or 3 minute video of this woman sharing what she thinks are the strengths and weaknesses. And then the next slide is going to be my takeaways from what she said, I think the most important things. And then I have a slide following that on the most important things. So what I recommend you do is pause this, read both essays, take some notes on what you think were strengths and weaknesses, and then compare to what the admissions representative said, and then you can listen to what I think is most important about what they said. But the point here is you get to hear from them what's most important from their feedback on these essays. Okay, so again, pause, take your notes, and then I'm going to go forward and I'm going to share what I think from both essay one and essay two's feedback from the videos is most important. Okay, I'm going to move forward in 3, 2, and 1. All right, the first essay is the one about the student who's in the accident and then becomes the EMT. And, they talked about the vivid language and that the student had this traumatic experience and then turned it into a positive. And the areas of improvement, and I think this first one is so important. They used too much of their essay to explain what happened and not enough space explaining how this changed the student now and how it's influenced her decisions for her future, or just how it's changed her in general. In other words, she says, the admissions representative says, get to the point earlier. I like to think about this. I have a colleague, Gabe, who used to say, in an essay like this, there's the what and the so what, or the why. And this student spends 90% of the essay on the what happened to her. And the very last short paragraph on why this matters, why she's sharing this story. And it should be flipped, right? It should be that 2/3 of the essay is about how this has changed her and how it's influenced her decision to be what she wants to do or whatever. But she uses very clear language, but she doesn't really tell us much about herself. She just tells us this interesting story about how she's become an EMT in this particular time where there's an accident. So really, there's this ratio of like the what and the so what, and she spends way too much time on the what and not enough time on the so what or the why. Okay, and then the last point here, consider what do I want the admissions committee to learn about me? What do I want them to know? After I read this essay, the question that you can ask yourself is, what do the representatives who read this, what do they learn about me? And is that what I want them to learn? And you can have friends read your essay or a teacher or whatever, and they can do the same thing. Okay, we're going to go on to the second essay. The second essay is the one where the student talks about the books on his shelf and how he's read Tolkien and Nietzsche and what Nietzsche would think of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and whatever else I forget. Okay, so positives. We know that the student's passionate about books. Clear, very clear, right? But the feedback was basically, what do we learn about this student? One person says, essentially, this essay boils down to amazing things that other people have done, right? Written books that are amazing. But we want to know about the student, and we don't really find out much. And again, at the very end, they say, I want to make films. But that's at the very end. And it seems like they're trying to impress us with their naming of books and talking about how the books would interact with each other. And they're trying to do something, and it just frankly doesn't really work very well. So it's an essay where, yeah, if I were advising a student, I'd probably say, like, what do you want us to learn about you? And then show me where in the essay we learn that about you. And then might even be a student who I advise to completely start over. All right, so those are those two essays, and I hope that you see a little bit more now about what admissions people are looking for. They're looking to get to know you better, to hear about how you've changed. And really, they only really want to know about how you've changed over the last couple of years. Don't write about you from 4 or 5 years ago, because they want to know about most recent you, the last maybe year, 2 years, three at tops. But I'd say a year or two of something that's happened to you. And they want to know whatever's happened to you, and stories are good, but how that's influenced who you are and who you want to be in the future. Okay, this is important also, show, don't tell, and I've got some examples here. So, yeah, my no example is Mr. Smith was a fat, grouchy old man, as compared to Mr. Smith heaved his heavy frame out of the armchair, and while trying to reach for his cane, grumbled, Susan, get yourself over here now. Right, so you can picture this big man who's trying to get out of this chair versus he was a fat, grouchy old man. It's very plain versus vivid, showing and not telling. I've got some more examples here. Yeah, you can pause these and take a look at these, and I think this is fairly clear about showing versus telling. And then, yeah, show, don't tell, write about yourself from the recent past, ideally the past 2 years or so. Oh, and I haven't talked about this yet. If you're applying to selective colleges, highly selective colleges, you're probably gonna have to write multiple essays. And typically, I recommend students early on in the process write two completely different essays that share different parts about yourself. And then a lot of times you can adapt these for many of the essays that you need to write. So hopefully that gets you started. Our next workshop is going to be on the brainstorming. So that's going to be next. This is supposed to help you to know what universities are looking for in these essays and help to start to identify strengths and weaknesses in essays. And next up is brainstorming. That'll be the next workshop. So I always think it's great to take time at the end of learning about something like this. What are your takeaways? What do you want to remember? And writing, even just thinking about this for yourself, but also taking the time to write it really helps get that information to process in your brain and to stay there. And so it doesn't just, be something that you learn for the moment. And then 2 weeks later, when you're working on your essay, or 2 months later, when you're working on your essay, be like, I don't remember what I wanted to remember from that. So I recommend taking a few moments, jotting it down, and I hope that was helpful. Have a great day. All right, now I've got to end this. Let me see. Zoom, stop recording. Where are we? Almost there, everybody. You can stop the video. Here we go.